Good morning again. This is part 2 of a post about what I would call the invalidity of God. Not the validity, the invalidity of God, and how I came to that realization that there was no God. We did that in the first part 1. Now I'm going to cover an area that gives a possible answer to the afterlife and how we could actually connect with the afterlife, and a possible theory that could actually work out to be, sometime in the future, come to be fact, of a means of contacting the past life. Now, before I start, please, if you like what we're hearing today, subscribe, press like if you will. Make a comment if you would like to, and also there is a little bell there which will keep you in touch with us, and you will receive any post that I make in the future. I have, over the years, looked into many religions, both formally and informally, and by that I mean both by actually studying them and by talking to people on informal occasions about them. A lot of those religions, if you call it that, like Buddhism, Taoism, etc., Sikhism, Hinduism, many people do not believe that they are actually religions because they do not have a basis of the concept of God. People who believe in the monotheist religions, who believe that God was the one who gave us religion, they say that these are not really religions because they don't involve God. And that is true. Religion itself is actually just a set of rules by which we live our lives. Whether it is God who gave us those rules or not is debatable. Hypothetic. There's been no credible evidence anywhere in history, at least that I'm aware of, that there is a God. And I won't go into that too much because it's all in part 1 of this. There is a doctor in America called Brian Weiss who deals in past life regressions. An incredibly interesting man. Right? He's a hypnotist, a psychotherapist, written many books. The most famous one of those is probably Many Lives, Many Masters, okay, where he talks about past life regressions and taking people back into their past lives and them recounting things that they couldn't possibly have had any knowledge about in this life. So accessing information within them that they didn't know they had. He's written many books. Through Time into Healing, which is a self-help book, Messages from the Master, Mirrors of Time, Same Soul, Many Bodies, and Miracles Happen. I do not profess to have read them all, but an incredibly different, wonderful man, and incredible books to read if you take the time and the opportunity. Whether you believe it or not, that's another matter, but incredibly interesting and mind-opening books. But the question always comes, if we can access past lives, if there is information within us that gives us access to these lives, or should say, if there is information that allows us to get access to these lives, it must come from somewhere within us, somewhere that we already can draw some access from. In thinking about this, the only religion that actually makes any sense to me, within reason, is a religion called Sikhism. Sikhism is believed by the Sikh people in northwestern India on the border with Pakistan. You recognize them because they wear the great big turbans with the point, and they have a lot of beliefs, like they always carry a small knife with them. They never ever cut their hair, which is why they tie it up inside their turban. They wear these great big long bloomers, and there's a number of other basic tenets set down by their guru some years ago when the religion was found. And it was found as a combination of Hinduism and Islam. They drew on both in finding it. Islam fundamentally is the same as Christianity, although many might argue that, and I accept that. But the fundamental tenets, the Old Testament of the Bible, both believe it. They both believe that there was Moses, the parting of the seas, the passing down of the tablets on the mount. And even Islam believes in Jesus. He just doesn't believe that he was the ultimate prophet. They believe that Muhammad was a prophet, the true prophet, and that there will be another coming in the future which will inaugur the Armageddon, the ending of the world, and the final judgment day of everybody. Sounds completely off the planet to me, which I guess it is in some ways. Sikhism believes in what they call atomic reincarnation. Right? Now, atomic reincarnation was a hypothesis put out by Heraclitus in about 400 or 500 years BC, a Greek philosopher. He didn't explain it in exactly the same way as the Sikhs do. But the Sikhs believe in reincarnation to start with. So they believe that when you die, you come back, but not as the Hindus do. Not that if you live a good life, that you grow through 7 different stages until you become a god yourself, until you reach perfection and become a god yourself. And then another 7 stages that you go through as a god to become a perfect god. Like Shiva or Lakshmi or Vishnu, Brahma, these names in Hinduism. They don't believe that you come back as an entity like that. And if you live a bad life, that you come back maybe as a dog or a cat or a snail or a fly, which is why many Hindus wear masks around their mouth, because they are complete vegetarians. And they wear the masks in fear that they might actually swallow a fly, or something might fly into their mouth and swallow it, in which case they might be swallowing one of their ancestors. There's many, many incredible, wonderful stories about Hinduism, but that's not why we're here today. What the Sikhs believe in is atomic reincarnation, so that when you die, your body breaks down, and there is no such thing as the spirit. Your body dies, decays, your body turns into dirt or ash or whatever it is, depending on what happened, fish food if they throw you into the Ganges. And when you break down, your atoms reform. Right? Now they reform as not as one entity. All your atoms do not come back as one entity. They separate as atoms do, and they dissipate through the atmosphere, and they reform into chains and links that form different things. Some might form a dog, some might form a cat, some might form a person, some might form a tree, some might form plants that grow out of the ground, that they dissipate and go everywhere. A little bit like the butterfly effect in some ways, that when you die, it affects everything in the world, because more atoms are released from a confined space and have the opportunity to create new entities. Right. Now, that's all understood, and if you read Sikhism, that you'll read about that and come to understanding. During my travels, in my year or so in India, I started thinking about this a lot. And when I started thinking about, started hearing about past life regressions and things, I thought, well, how does this tie in? Right? And I came to the conclusion that there is a possibility that it is all fundamentally true, that there is a hereafter, not as we know it, like heaven and hell or paradise or whatever you choose to call it, but that we are living in paradise. A common theme today is that everything is connected. Everything in the world is connected, which does seem to make sense because everything dies, everything dissipates, everything reforms. We plant our manure or our refuse in the ground, it decays and turns into food for the plants and the trees, etc. So why shouldn't our atoms do exactly the same? Just makes common sense. Where this took me is, what if these atoms contained a memory? What if every atom in our body, or maybe certain atoms in our body, or certain atoms in certain parts of our body, contained a memory? And when they reformed as whatever, certain atoms would have reformed as new people. Right? They would have reformed into the food being digested by people, by women who were pregnant, maybe got into the fetus, into the babies, and formed as part of the atomic structure of people. Now, if these atoms actually had a memory, then it is also feasible that that memory is accessible. Right? Accessible how? I don't know. Brian Weiss would say through hypnosis, through past life regressions, by taking people back into their past. But taking people back into their past is really just another word for taking people back into their memory. If their memory was stored in atoms, it's actually taking them back into the memory of those that is contained within those atoms. And it has been shown that people can actually, without any knowledge of other languages, suddenly start talking in French or Greek or Roman or ancient languages that they could possibly not have known anything about. As Brian Weiss would say, you can take people back and they will tell you stories about, intricate stories, about their lives, previous lives. How could this be possible? Maybe atomic reincarnation. If atoms hold a memory of certain aspects of a past existence, then this is what they are actually accessing. Now, I'm sure people would find this, some people would find this completely unfeasible, but so was the round world when people believed in the flat earth policy. Everything that we know today came from some sort of desire to access information. A chap that I know said that his brother was a sci-fi writer, and the CIA in America, and the CIA actually approached him and said, can you come up, he was a very well-known sci-fi writer, and the CIA approached him and said, can you come up with concepts that nobody has ever thought about before for various weapons? Because if you can come up with the concepts, then we can create them. We can manufacture them if we know what we have to create. But if we don't know what we have to create, we can't access them. It's a little bit like having an atom inside your body with a memory that you can't access, an imagination that is there, and a memory of the past that, if you can access, can tell you things that you can not possibly get from anywhere else. Right? So this is Jeff's theory of atomic reincarnation, of the hereafter, or the possible hereafter, and past life regressions. If everything is interconnected, if part of our atoms dissipate and go into other forms once we die, it makes absolute sense that everything is connected. It makes absolute sense if there is a memory within those atoms, that it is in some way accessible. I stopped believing in religion at the age of 17 on a boat crossing the Pacific, when I looked up to the sky and I saw the myriad and myriad of stars in the sky, undiluted by any light. And my mind just broke down and said, it's just not feasible for somebody to, any one entity called God, to control anything like that. Now, I'm not saying that this big entity is God, but you could call it that if you wish to. I just say it's nature. It's not unfeasible that with satellites and with falling stars and cosmic dust, etc., that if my theory is true, our atoms could be on other planets, or life on other planets. Their atoms could be here. We could be dreaming these things all the time. It gives us access to our dreams. We all dream about things that we have no knowledge of in the past. Where do these dreams come from? They must come from somewhere inside us. Many dreams we recognize, of course, but other dreams don't. Atomic reincarnation, where the atoms hold a memory, to me, answers every question that might be asked about the supernatural, about past life regressions, about access to memories that we don't have anywhere else, there's nothing I can think of that it doesn't actually answer the question to. Of course, I'm not a scientist. I can't prove that atoms do hold a memory. I don't know how you would prove it. I don't know if you can prove it. But if you could, I think it's a fascinating thing to work towards, finding out whether God is really just nature, and we are all part of one, right? And if we explode this world, right? If we depopulate the planet, that means we're actually repopulating it again with atoms from all the people who we depopulated it from. The mind boggles. I'll leave you to think about it. Please, I would love you to make comments on this. Let's have a discussion about it. I'd love to take it further. Please do. All right. I'll call it quits there for the day because I feel myself rambling a little bit. If you liked what you heard today, please subscribe. Make a comment, please. Press like, if you will. And there's a little bell on your screen there. Touch the little bell and you'll get news of any new post that we put up in the future. In the meantime, have a wonderful day. This is Jeff, signing off again. Thank you very much for watching.